Thank you, Elizabeth. Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to News Nation, where right and left come to be reasonable. So it seems as though our collective fate vis-a-vis the regime in Iran played out in 3 tweets from President Trump. Each presents a known and an unknown that matter. So let's go through them. The most recent is the best if it is true, because it suggests the least violence. The president tweets, Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire that will begin at midnight tonight in what he is calling now the end of the 12-day war. Let's stop there. Odd the president would call this a war when he doesn't consider his decision to bomb Iran unilaterally an official act of war. But that is a testament to our current state of politics. There is no real logical consistency. It's all advantage all the time. Regardless, if this is true, if there is a ceasefire, and I have to say if, because the president has shown in recent days, let alone always, that he can say things that are not to be taken for the truth of the matter asserted. And neither side has confirmed the ceasefire yet. But, if it happens, this would be the biggest foreign policy achievement for the president in this administration. You can argue with how it came about, whether it were necessary or even legal. But here we are. If there's a ceasefire, it's got to be seen as a win. Now, where does it lead? How long? Who knows? I want to deal with a more immediate question. Did our bombing work? Well, yes, if you now want to define the rationale for it as bringing a ceasefire, but that's not what we were told going into it, right? That takes us to the second tweet. Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which we expected and have very effectively countered. 14 missiles fired, 13 knocked down, 1 was let go because it wasn't going anywhere important. Obliterated is the word. Do we know that? No. Yes, the Iran attack was weak. We know that. The regime has been crushed. Israel has been destroying its proxies and its capabilities with these most recent bombings, but they damaged the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah. So Iran is weak, and now a lot of their air systems were dismantled by Israel. Now we get to our part. There's no confirmation that we obliterated their nuclear facilities. Reports say that senior U.S. officials believe we did not destroy the Fordow nuclear facility deep underground, and it may have been only severely damaged. How do they know that? I don't know. And right now, we have no idea if we actually destroyed their 400 kilograms of enriched uranium. Iran says they moved it prior to this weekend's attacks. Do we know that? No. We don't know what happened to them, and we don't know if they moved them because they're liars. So, do we know why we bombed? Unless you're saying it's about the ceasefire. The ceasefire may now be looked at as the reason for the bombings. But there was a mixed message, to be sure, right? Between, no, we're doing this to destroy the nukes. The regime cannot have nuclear weapons. I agree with that premise. I have been light on criticism of even the apparently gray area of legality of this unilateral decision by the President of the United States, because I don't have a better idea. And I haven't heard of any better idea to get rid of the prospect of the regime having nukes. That is my criticism of the MAGA schism and the pod bros who are hyper-isolationist and saying that he should be impeached for doing this. If you accept that the regime can't have nukes, and if you think they can have nukes, then you should be dismissed right there because you don't know what you're talking about. What's the better idea? If you're going to condemn his idea, what's the better idea? They don't have one. They just complain for profit. Now, the confusion about why we did this, was it to get rid of the nukes or was it for regime change? I'm not adding the regime change part. The administration never said that. They said it's not about regime change, but then it was Trump who added to the confusion. After his officials said, no regime change, that's not what we're doing, it's about the nukes, he put out a tweet. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Trump knows there is no will for boots on the ground, and the regime is a bunch of zealots who are all about perception, so he should have known this barb would be countered, and it was. The Ayatollah put out a tweet, or whoever tweets for him. Those who know the Iranian people and their history know that the Iranian nation is a nation that isn't a nation that surrenders. The problem with the Ayatollah's tweet is that he is not the nation's leader. He's just the regime's leader, which is a bunch of Islamist terrorists oppressing the actual people of Iran. So, what else do we know? Iran is weak. Their top military commanders have been killed. Their top nuclear scientists have been assassinated. Their nuclear sites have been damaged somewhat. Reports say at least half their missile launchers have been destroyed, and a lot of their military infrastructure is damaged. But are we in a better position than before Trump left the deal? Well, when Iran signed the nuclear deal in 2015 with 7 countries, including Iran, and I emphasize that because this idea that it was all America is BS. The idea that Obama gave them billions is BS. Part of the negotiated deal among the 7 countries was the return of money that had been held, that was Iran's, and had been held for many years. So the idea that he just gave them money is deceptive, and the truth is enough, all right? They had enriched 10,000 kilograms of uranium between 3 and 5%. That's what you use for fuel, okay? They also enriched 400 kilograms of uranium to 20%, which can be used for medical research purposes or for energy production. But it's also on the path to a bomb. And a lot of experts don't believe they were using it for medical research. Before Trump left the Iran deal, the IAEA reported that Iran was complying with the deal. And guess what? So did the Trump administration weeks before he exited. And they only had 140 kilograms of reactor-grade uranium, and they were not enriching uranium to 20% anymore. Now, this year, after he left the deal, Iran had 7,000 kilograms of reactor-grade uranium, 275 kilograms of uranium enriched to 20%. But they also had over 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%. And look, they can claim they're using it for cancer treatment, but that is to cause a cancer to us. That's what they're doing. Uranium enriched to 60% is one step away from being enriched to 90%. That's nuclear weapon grade, okay? So, they've done more since Trump left the deal. And by most accounts, Iran doesn't have that much right now, even though we just bombed them because it was so urgent, which we never had proven to us. But here's now the problem. Iran on its own can't get it done, but what if they get help? What if the bombing incentivizes Russia to help them? Russia, who was part of that original deal, okay? Former Russian President Medvedev said the other countries were willing to directly supply Iran with nuclear warheads in retaliation. Trump, went at him in this cartoonish way with you're not using the N-word, meaning nuclear, are you? You're not using the N-word. Look, I can't believe that Russia would want to do that. But if they do, what a problem that would be. And the fact that the bombing has precipitated this back and forth makes you wonder about what impact it will have over time. So, economically, they have not moved on the Hormuz Strait, okay? The markets were going to tumble when the Iranian parliament called for the closure. That's 20% of the world's petro goes through there, okay? Would have been a wreck. Oil prices would have skyrocketed. But they haven't done anything yet, all right? Now, Iran reportedly warned Trump before the attacks that it could activate sleeper cells embedded within the United States to strike inside the homeland. One, why didn't he tell us that on Saturday night? That is the most important information, okay? Why? Why wouldn't you tell us that? That Iran said they're going to wake sleeper cells. You need the American people to see something and say something. And we are seeing a disturbing rise in extremism in our country. Yes, Islamist fanaticism, yes, but non-Islamists who are just becoming sympathetic to the cause, like the kids on campus who are pro-Hamas. And now this wing of the Democratic Party that is comfortable with the rhetoric of globalizing the intifada. You thought socialism was your biggest concern. Globalize the intifada? Appropriating the oppression of some perceived victim class? That's the new state of play on the political left? Really? Really? That's why there's greater risk of a lone wolf attack not having anything to do with a sleeper cell than there ever was before. Why do you say that? Look at Minnesota. Look at Boulder. Look at the Israeli embassy. Look at the IVF clinic. Look at the CEO of the healthcare company and his murder. Were any of them jihadists? No. They were disaffected American males who had a perverse reckoning that violence was okay in the pursuit of their skewed politics. Now, the media has been asking all the questions that I am right now. And yes, there's a lot of criticism of the president wrapped in there. But his third tweet is one that he should not have sent. Bashing a signature blessing of our democracy, which is the media, does not help make anything stronger, okay? And it cannot be that the pod bros are the only people that you can trust. There is no accountability. They flip-flop all over the place because they're just selling hot takes, and that's fine. I'm okay with the democratization of media. I say the more ideas, the better. But the idea that that's who you're going to go to for information? Really? That's what the president wants you to do. Why? Because they're just parroting his message. Even when they go sideways on him, as some of the pod bros are right now, even calling for Trump's impeachment, they have nowhere to go. Eventually, they're going to have to come back to him. And if he slaps any one of them, their following will get cut in half. So Trump lashes out at the media for saying that the nuke sites were not totally destroyed. And only the fake news would say anything different than they were totally destroyed, listing CNN, ABC, and NBC. And then he did something that I don't understand, and I'm not even sure, I don't even think it's the first time he's done it. He calls Anderson Cooper. I don't care what Anderson said about me or, how he feels about why I was fired at CNN. I like Anderson Cooper. I respect Anderson Cooper. And I'll tell you what, Anderson Cooper, as a gay man, gets my respect and protection. And calling him Allison Cooper? Come on, man. What are we, 11? I mean, not only is that it's President of the United States. President of the United States. Feminizing him because he's gay? Because you don't like what he reported? We got to be better than that. I don't care how much you want to dismiss of the president, okay? You know that's not right. You know you didn't vote for that and you didn't sign up for that. So don't say it's okay. Don't ignore it. Don't just play to advantage, okay? Calling Anderson anything but Anderson is a cheap shot that gets us nothing. Going after the media for asking real questions that we don't have the answer to is the damn job. Do we know it was obliterated? Do we know it was effective? Do we know the state of any of it? Now, if you want to say, well, we can't know yet, that's okay. That's an acceptable answer. But don't say you completely obliterated something when you're not being told that and you don't know it. Okay? And if you want to change why you bombed, that's fine. That's politics. See if you can sell it to the American people. I know you can sell it to MAGA. But we got to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. I'm telling you, all this hate, all this constant division, even when it's gratuitous, even when you don't need it, like with what the president just did there. He had a great day if this ceasefire happens. And he's got to take a shot at somebody and with a homophobic slur? So let's deal with what matters. What do we know? What do we not know? And what matters? I want to bring in former Deputy National Security Advisor for the Middle East under President Trump, Victoria Coates, and former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense for Mideast Policy, retired Army Brigadier General Mark Kimmitt. Thank you both very much for joining me tonight. Victoria, in terms of how we assess whether the bombing was effective, you have that it may have precipitated a ceasefire. You have that it may have had an impact on their ability to enrich uranium, and it may have had an impact on the stability of the regime. Which of those matters most and is most demonstrable to you?
Well, Chris, Mark, good to be with you. For me, it is the decimation of their nuclear capability. That is what the president campaigned on. That is the justification for this. And I actually would put my trust in the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, who's been a friend of some years, when he says that this was an effective operation. And the other thing to bear in mind here, though, Chris, is that planning for this has been going on for more than 10 years. This isn't a partisan situation. This is planning that has been inaugurated under presidents of both parties, carried out, the practicing for it has been carried out by our excellent men and women in our armed services. And I think they were actually pretty effective. And that was the point of it. And that is what is going to be the lasting legacy of this operation.
I want to say great and move on to something else. I have no problem with your analysis that this has been in the works for multiple administrations. Makes sense, consistent with what I've been told. I have not been told what you are suggesting, which is, yeah, they know they took out the enrichment capabilities. I'm not told that. The only thing they've said explicitly is they didn't destroy the Fordow facility. The only thing I've been told on background with reporting is the bunker busters can't do nothing. They're too powerful. They penetrate too deeply. They're too destructive. But we can't know without time and on the ground analysis. And we have to wait because the Iranians will talk and then we'll know the impact.
Well, no, that's the whole point is we don't know yet. And I do think, though, the assessment from the chairman that everything that was supposed to happen happened, so they can extrapolate from that what it might look like. That is the most trustworthy information I have. And until we have proof otherwise that isn't provided to us by the Iranian regime, I'm willing to take that assessment as a success for the United States military.
I hear you. So, General, how do you see it?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, this is not just multiple administrations. I was chief of war plans at CENTCOM in 2004. We were working the Iran plan back then, and we had pretty granular information from 21 years ago. And every year that plan has been refined and refined and refined. So I would suspect that the information that the U.S. military had going into that operation was about as good as you could get short of being inside those facilities. I agree with Victoria. The best briefing I heard and the most throw the ball straight down the middle of the plate briefing was that of Dan Kane, where he said he believes that these were significantly damaged. I don't like these other verbs. They're not military terms, but significantly damaged, I can understand. To me, that means they may not have been completely melted, but they are certainly disabled. There's no doubt in my mind that there will not be any enrichment coming out of that facility anytime soon. People have been barking about well, where's the uranium? It's important to realize that that was 60% uranium that needed to be enriched. The enrichment facility was the place where that would happen. So if they've taken 60% uranium down the street and don't have a way to enrich it to the 90% necessary to make a bomb, to me, if there are some hidden enrichment facilities that we don't yet know about, I would say that was a win. Certainly for those pilots that hazarded this mission.
Logistically, can you move that much uranium as quickly as they had a window to do?
Sure. They had pictures of trucks pulling up quite some time ago. I think only an idiot would have kept unenriched uranium at a enrichment site, knowing that you were in the middle of a war with Israel. I think probably the first thing they did when Israel attacked a week ago Friday was start repositioning whatever they could.
Victoria, the idea of Medvedev, the former Russian president, Putin's stooge, saying, we may give him to him just because of what you did. Is that even a possibility in your mind?
Well, this was a pretty crazy statement out of Medvedev, Chris, that the third country might provide a nuclear weapon to Iran at this point because of the U.S. action. And I noticed today that there was a little bit of a cleanup on aisle 4. I think perhaps President Putin saw that statement, didn't particularly like the look of it, and made Medvedev make a follow-up statement in which he said that Russia would not be providing nuclear weapons to the Iranians. And I would also point out that Putin himself said earlier this week that the so-called deal between the Iranians and the Russians did not include military support. He said that after the Israeli actions started. So I don't see either Russia or China racing to support the Iranians at this point.
First of all, I appreciate you both. having the perspective of your experience and the sober-mindedness on these questions. And just a little footnote for people at home, there's a lot of yap online about how Russia's going to team up with Iran now, and they're going to be a terror. Russia has its own terrorism problems, doesn't want to be in the terror game, and it's got Sunni Islamist terror problems that Iran cannot help it with as a Shia country. ISIS hates Iran as much as it hates anybody else. So Victoria Coates, thank you very much. General Kimmitt, thank you very much for the perspective, both of you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, be well. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. So, state of play in terms of the global macro foreign policy, military dynamic, yes, right? But now, what is the secondary concern? What about us? What about here? What about sleeper cells that Iran told Trump they may activate that he never told us about? What about not needing sleeper cells because we have gone extreme in this country and keep attacking ourselves? That's what we're going to discuss right now. The United States has been placed at an all-time high risk for domestic terror. Who's saying that? Why are they saying it? I got people who know. Next. The president says there's a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. I don't know. We haven't heard from them yet. Is that odd? Yeah. Officials over the weekend warned that America's attack on Iran could have put us all at an all-time high risk for domestic terror attacks. Now, the perception is he's made us safer, which is true. Oh, maybe both. Customs and Border Protection Chief Rodney Scott put out a memo urging CBP personnel to remain vigilant, saying thousands of Iranian nationals have been documented entering the United States illegally, and countless more were likely in the known and unknown gotaways. The commissioner saying that the threat of sleeper cells or sympathizers acting on their own or at the behest of Iran has never been higher. Meanwhile, the State Department put out a worldwide security alert advising Americans overseas to exercise increased caution. The Swedish media reporting Iran may be pressuring local gangs to target U.S. citizens in Sweden, of all places. So, what is the reality of the risk, and what do we do about it? Retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent James Gagliano and retired CIA officer and FBI Special Agent Tracy Walder. It's good to have you both. Tracy, sleeper cells, not new, but Rodney Scott's sense of urgency is. What do you make of it?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Chris. Listen, I absolutely think that they're here, but I think we need to look at it a little bit differently. I think we're in this 9/11 sort of mindset, and that individuals are coming from overseas to here and awaiting some kind of a signal. I think they are already here. I think they're homegrown to what you were speaking about earlier. And I think that they don't need a signal to act. We're looking at kind of lone wolf style attacks, not these large scale, multiple people involved type of attacks. And I really hate the term sleeper cell, to be honest with you. I think it's very Hollywood. The reality is these are terrorists, some of them domestic terrorists.
Yeah, it does make it sound like there's some kind of zombie, Manchurian Candidate vibe. Like they have to be activated and they go from being your local grocer, to some butcher. I'm with you on that, Tracy. I'll never say it again. Gags, in terms of the extension of Tracy's analysis, I buy into that even more than the Iranians coming after us thing, which is we don't need enemies from the outside. We are killing ourselves from the inside. The most recent spate of political violence, if you want to call it that, none of them were Islamists. They were all disaffected American males that were acting out of some perverse political ideology. What does that mean to you?
Well, first of all, Chris, I agree with Tracy. I mean, there's two different distinct ways that this can happen. One is directed, and that's kind of what the president got word at the G7 summit last week, and that's where we first heard this onerous term, this Hollywood term, sleeper cells. We have a 2,000-mile border between us and Mexico, a 5,000-mile border between us and Canada. There are many ways that people can get across the border. We understand that. But Chris, in the 21st century, One of the newest things in the last 20, 30, 40 years are cyber attacks. You don't need to be here to do that. And again, it's not just stealing state secrets or stealing military secrets. It's jamming radar. It's crippling infrastructure like the 16 critical infrastructure sectors like water, wastewater, the electric grid, God forbid. So these things can be done a long way from here, Chris. But yes, terrorist organizations do embed people. They're hiding in plain sight. Whether or not they will be able to mount something significant, well, truth be told, I think that would be very, very tough to do right now. But I agree with Tracy. I think this is much more the inspired folks as opposed to the directed folks.
Inspired is a good word, Gags. And, we'll save for another day the fact that I don't know why we don't care about cyber stuff the way we care. You kill one person in a shopping mall, we go crazy for 2 days. You destroy the power grid for the entire East Coast, and nobody wants to talk about it. Tracy, Luigi Mangione, all these other psycho, or not psycho murderers. The idea that radicalization has changed, that Islamists can push extremism without even ever mentioning Islamism, and they're doing it online all the time. What do you make of that suggestion?
I wholeheartedly agree. And I completely agree with James in that cyber is actually the core issue. Even if you look at individuals like Luigi Mangione, all of them were radicalized via computer. All of them. That is where this is really happening. I mean, even if we look at Iran, they launched a denial of service attack against the United States in 2016. You couldn't bank at JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America because of this. But aside from stopping our critical infrastructure, they are also, through psychological operations, basically online, winning the hearts and minds of disaffected individuals here in the United States. And in my opinion, I don't think that we are doing, aside from not doing enough to stop the attacks against our critical infrastructure, I'm not sold on the fact that we are doing enough to stop those kind of radicalization events.
I agree with you. Tracy, Gags, I appreciate you both. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for setting us straight and being sensible about it, reasonable. No need for panic. The reality will be enough. Thank you both. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I want to turn our attention to an issue that just about everybody agrees with, okay? Health care is inadequate. Health insurance too often sucks. Can't get it. When you can, it's too expensive. So, you know whose problem that is? Health and Human Services Secretary Bobby Kennedy Jr. He made a big announcement today. He said it's a breakthrough. He said he's got a fix. And he said he wanted to come on to try to sell it to you. And also, I wanted to talk to him about what he's doing in East Palestine and when they're going to get help. The Secretary is here to make the case to you. Next. There's a really good chance that you didn't hear about Bobby's announcement today because of all the Iran, Middle East stuff, okay? But it matters, and that's why I'm happy to have the Secretary with us today. The Secretary, alongside Mehmet Oz, Dr. Oz, who was here last week talking about Medicaid and Medicare, he's the administrator, announced that they're calling a breakthrough in health insurance that will allow millions of Americans to have better access. What is it? How will it work? Why will it work? Joining us now, Secretary Kennedy. Secretary, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Hey, Chris. Good to see you. Thanks for having me back.
So what are you doing, and why should we care?
Well, during the transition, just before I got confirmed by the Senate, one of my deputies called Dr. David Cutler, who's an economist at Harvard, who's been studying the American healthcare system for 30 years, and said, what's the one thing that we could do that would dramatically change healthcare delivery for the American people? And he didn't wait a second. He said, get rid of prior authorizations. Prior authorization is the authorization that your doctor, when you're sitting in the office with your doctor and he prescribes you a drug or an intervention or a device, and then you have to wait maybe for hours, maybe for days, maybe for weeks to figure out whether or not your insurance company is going to cover it. 85% of American patients say that they've experienced medical delays because of prior authorization. What we did is we brought all the insurance, the major insurance companies in this country together, about 12 of them, who covered 271 million Americans, and we asked them to make an agreement to get rid of prior authorization for most interventions, for 85% of interventions. Some of them you want them for. Most of them you don't, and they've been very, very badly abused. Typically, a doctor in this country spends 12 hours a week filling out forms for prior interventions. There's no interoperability of the system, so each insurance company has a different methodology. Some of them require you to reply by fax, some of them by phone, others by a computer portal, and if you do it wrong, you don't get it. So millions of Americans get denied. As you know, there's been violence in the streets directly as a result of these complaints. And this is a milestone in American health. All of these insurance companies have now gotten together and said, we're going to make our systems interoperable. We are going to we're going to facilitate speed. We're going to answer in seconds or minutes. And for 85% of the drugs or interventions or surgeries, we're going to abandon prior authorization. You get it automatically. Let me give you one example. One of my best friends is a surgeon in New York, and he's a heart transplant surgeon. He recently had a patient who was dying and needed a heart transplant. He had him on the operation table. The insurance company had approved prior authorization for the transplant, but they refused to approve, and they found out this just before surgery, they refused to approve the electric pump that is needed to keep the patient alive between when they lose their old heart and they get their new heart. The doctor was faced with a dilemma. Do I do this and not get the surgery paid for? And they went ahead and they did the surgery. He then got sued by the insurance companies. So that is the problem that every doctor in this country faces, and this is going to change that so that that never happens again.
So I love it until those last few words. Never happens again. I don't trust them. This is voluntary. And how do we know that the 85% that they cut out leaves the 15% where they do it most often and it causes the most inconvenience? How do you make them do it? And how do you make sure that they're not screwing you?
We have agreed on a list of the interventions that they won't require prior authorization for. There are certain
and if you catch them doing it, what can you do to them?
Well, if they don't comply, we still have a gorilla in the closet, which is legislation. We have a lot of other hammers that we can bring down on them. And they have agreed to do this in the past. They did in 2022 and 2023. And they did nothing. But this time is different because the number of patients we have now covered, 271 million, and more companies are signing up every day. But also, we have specificity, we have time deadlines, we have metrics that they have to comply with, and we have regulatory sanctions if they don't do that are now before Congress. So I'm I'm cautiously confident that they're going to do it. It's trust but verify, but I think this is closer than we've ever gotten, and the agreements are very, very solid.
Well, look, we definitely need it. I had a doctor on not too long ago who was complaining about just this. So at least you're trying. You get marks for that as far as I'm concerned. Let's see how it goes. East Palestine, you know that we've been all over that situation here at News Nation. The people are happy that they're getting attention, but they believe you don't need to study anything. And you need a lot more than $10 million. They're sick, they have breathing problems, it's all documented and been ignored by the government. What do you want to see happen there, and what can you make happen?
Well, studying it, doing these observational studies and these longitudinal studies of human health is going to document their health impacts. And once that, and we're also going to document the contamination in the area, the water, the dust, the houses. But once you get that documentation, then there are a number of other remedies that are available. And, those include making the companies pay for their treatment and doing medical monitoring programs that force the company from now on to take responsibility for those health impacts. But we're going to document them at NIH using gold standard science, and that's going to be something that the people of East Palestine have not had before.
Yeah, they haven't, and they need it, boy. And there's a good case to be made, not within your jurisdiction or your purview, that the government knew what was happening there, and they slow-walked it, not unlike an insurance company. But, Bobby, that's not your situation. You're dealing with what you can.
I spent a lot of time in East Palestine. I heard the complaints. I saw the government delays with my own eyes. And this is our first step toward trying to fix that and get some justice and get good health for the people of that region.
Well, they certainly need it, boy, and they were left for dead. Bobby, thank you very much for coming on to make the case to the audience. You're always welcome. Good luck doing the work of the people, Secretary.
Thank you very much, Chris.
All right, take care. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Up next, You Matter Most. Have your say. What do you want to ask me? Let's get after it. 844-968-7720. All right, Dusty, who do you got?
We're going to start with Doug from Texas.
Ceasefire with Israel.
Doug, what's your question?
Does that include Gaza?
Does what include Gaza?
The ceasefire between Israel and Iran does not include Gaza.
No. Well, did you cut off my man? Look, is that a shame? Yeah, of course it's a shame. Does the violence in Gaza need to stop? Yes, of course. It's horrible. But think about both sides of this equation. How do you stop when you have on the other side a terror organization that is committed to your demise and destruction and promises to strike as soon as they can? I mean, this is almost like some kind of stupid school exam, theoretical, philosophical exam, except people are paying the price for it every day. And they still have the hostages. There can't be peace in that region soon enough. But we've been saying that for 2 generations. Next.
Jeff from the home of one of our bosses, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
The meat and potatoes,
Chris,
people.
I've
What do you got?
loved you since CNN, and your objective analysis is absolutely instrumental to our understanding of the news. My question is, if you oppose the president's decision to effectively eliminate the Iranian nuclear program, what is the practical opposition to that decision?
Well, let me put it a little different way. What's the better idea? See, I don't have one. And that has been my beef with the isolationists and saying he should be impeached and we caused Iran's problems. We created the regime by getting rid of the Shah and we did this and we did that and we're bad. Fine. I'm sure it gets you a big podcast following, and I'm sure it lets you play to outrage and how pissed off everybody is. I've never seen America as susceptible to extreme ideas and tendencies as we are right now. But what's the better idea? Unless you believe the regime can have nukes or you believe they were never going to have them, one of them is stupid. The other one is stupid. So I'm with you. I don't have a better idea. Does that mean you can't criticize this one? No, but it means you've got to be fair with your criticism, especially if the ceasefire is real. Next.
Next, we're going to Minnesota. Bobby.
Hey,
Bobby,
Chris,
what's your question?
This is Bobby. I'm 79 years old. I grew up in West Harrison, New York, all the time when I was a kid. The question is this. Do you think President Trump cut a deal with Israel? If he drops the bomb, they'll go to a peace talk. I'll listen for your answer.
Oh, well, look, first, I don't know. Okay, that's the answer. I have no idea what this was. Does that make sense to me? No. Look, I think not Israel, that's not fair. I think Bibi Netanyahu believes that this is his last great moment, that he's going to do as much as he can to destroy as many as he can that he believes are part of the threat to his country as he can. And I do suspect that he's doing this with Iran's regime right now as much because Trump is in office as it is because of whatever change in intelligence he's had about the nuclear enrichment. Because I think he knew Trump would be, even though Trump is not a hawk, I think he knew Trump would be more sympathetic to his cause than Biden had been. So do I think that that was the deal? No, I don't even know that there is a deal, brother. Until I hear Israel and Iran say, that's it, we're in a ceasefire, there is no ceasefire. Next.
Next and last, I think, Joe from Nevada.
Joe, what's your question?
Chris, please, please, please run for president. You are the only person in the United States
My hairline.
that wants better. That's what we need. We need better. Please throw your name in the hat.
Joe, why you hate me? Why he hate me, Joe? Why he hate me? Listen, I run from office, not for it. I can't believe my brother wanted to get back into public service in a party that is so crazy. Everybody's extreme. Everything's extreme. Everything is attacking all the time. I train in self-defense all the time. I never deal with people in hypotheticals who are as hostile as I see on Twitter every day. Everybody wants to kick your ass. Everybody's angry about something. And now we're seeing the Democrats go through what the Republicans went through when they arrived at MAGA. They have their own outrage campaign. It's not for me, brother. I'll do my job, and this is what it is. We'll be right back. Leland has a 2-hour special coming up. I got a lot of questions here about why I keep talking about extremism and not talking about terrorists. Because look around you. Look at the state of our dialogue. Look at social media. Look at who's been perpetrating the violence. This is not 2003, where they're all jihadis. These are American born and bred people with very perverse understandings of politics and violence. That's why I keep saying it, because it's real and all around us. 2-hour special, ambitious, but you are the man for the job.
And a great setup man you are. Chris Cuomo, thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.